Welcome to another episode of a very good social media podcast where we try to live up to that name every day. I'm your host, Zach Elia. Let's get into it. All right, so today's episode, again, very excited to chat with this guy, Kyle Benzion, director of social content and engagement with Holiday and Club Vacations. Just someone that I've known for quite some time. Our paths crossed when I was in the NFL with the Steelers. He was with the Falcons. And just someone that, I've had countless conversations with over the years and really got to know on a personal level, more recently. But just a great chat of, making the transition from, being in sports his entire career to a new venture, a new challenge, and how that's going for him, and just how the transition went to be able to do that. And great chat about leadership and empowering your people, and getting to know people that you work with, and all of just such great things that really are invaluable in this industry. So, talking about projects that he's proud of, and different things that they've done with the Falcons, with like Hayden Hurst and schedule release, and everything in between. And so it was awesome to talk to this guy. I really hope you guys enjoy this episode. And so without further ado, I'd like to welcome Kyle to the show.
Thanks, man. I've been looking forward to this since the day you reached out to me. So always love talking shot, man.
Definitely, man. And like we were just talking off air, but like we've known each other for so long. Like we crossed paths. I always end up stumbling through that. Back in like 2016, I think you were with the Falcons. I was with the Steelers. And like I remember like we've chatted in spurts, and we've talked about different things and ideas, and times when, the teams linked up and did different things, but it's never been like we just get to sit and, like you said, talk shop for, an hour and just see where it takes us.
I think that's like the coolest thing about social is you get to know people like even a little bit, and then you start following the accounts that they run and keeping an eye on what they do and kind of seeing how they evolve and their ideas that they come up with. So yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think we first met and talked at a bar for a bit at one of the NFL summits, and yeah, it's been cool to keep an eye on your career, man, and how you've progressed over the last several years. It's been really
I,
cool.
I appreciate it. Yeah, right back at you. Well, and it's cool. Like you said, I mean, like you're basically, once you get to know people in this industry, it's like you can see their work. Obviously, like we're in a unique industry where it's like everything that you do is so public, but it's like, yeah,
Oh,
it's like I'm following along like the Falcons the whole time you're there,
yeah.
and knowing like who's behind this and who's doing this stuff. And it's like amazing stuff goes up, and you're like, all right, I got to reach out to Kyle and see what's going
Yeah.
on. But it's funny that like that back and forth where it's not you actually, it's like we post stuff on our personal accounts, of course, but it's like
Yeah.
that's really how you follow along with your friends in the industry, is like, oh, what are the Chiefs doing today? What are the Niners doing today? Like
It
that kind
re-
of stuff.
really is. In the NFL, especially, man, it's such a tight brotherhood. Like the NFL, I thought, at least my time in the NFL, I knew what every team was doing at all times. I didn't necessarily feel that like in the NBA or in necessarily other areas, but like in the NFL, I was like, I know what everybody's doing at all times. It's just easy to keep tabs on people and on teams. And I love that. I love that.
Yeah. Well, and when you're on each other's schedule, whenever it is, or even if you're in
Yeah.
the same division, it's like you're going to be seeing each other at least twice a year, or maybe, once every
Mhm.
few years. But yeah, it's funny how it kind of coincides.
It really is. Yeah. It's good times, man. Good times. I enjoyed those days for sure.
Definitely. Well, man, like the way I start every episode is just I'm going to turn it over to you. Tell us,
Yeah.
tell everybody how you got to where you are today, the choices that you made to get to this point, and just what you're up to, and what you got going on.
Sure, man. I'll give the brief version. So, graduated from University of Florida, College of Journalism and Communications. Go Gators! Telecommunication grad. Started out in college athletics. Took my first job, University of Nebraska, in the athletic department. Really learned from one of my mentors there, Kelly Mosier. He was my boss, now a good friend of mine. And I was doing like on-camera stuff, video editing, not social, and he was heading all of the Husker social. And I just started like picking his brain, like, why are we doing this? How do you know that? What are you doing to measure that? Like, what does this do? What does that do? I mean, I would just pick his brain all the time. And that's when I started to really get involved with social and begin to love it. From there, took a job at George Washington University to lead their social in the athletic department. And then cards fell the right way and got an opportunity at the Atlanta Falcons, was there 6 seasons. First season was the Super Bowl. Yes, the one everybody knows about. And then, just really proud of what we were able to accomplish there and proud of the team that we had there. I mean, everybody says like you never know how good you have it until you don't have it anymore. And like that team was so special. And I don't mean the team on the field, like our digital team. We have a group text and it goes off every single day of that crew. So I love that team there. From there, took the opportunity to come back home to my hometown of the Orlando Magic, led the digital strategy there for a year, and then decided to kind of take a chance and do something different. And I've now been for about 15 months the head of social content and engagement for holiday and club vacations in the hospitality timeshare travel industry. It's been a totally unique challenge for me. It's been an awesome one. I think we've done a lot of great things. And yeah, I mean, we can dive a little bit more into, why I decided to leave the sports world. I'm sure that's going to be a question and all that. And if it was the right time and, I love where I'm at right now. And of course you miss sports a little bit, but it's the right place at the right time for sure.
Definitely. Well, and I mean, you bring up a good point just about like your your team, like specifically in Atlanta, where it's like you grow so close and you're in the foxhole together throughout all these things. And it's interesting and I don't know that everyone always thinks of it this way, but it's like you are, you know, good social teams mirror kind of good sports teams. And I'm sure
Yeah.
it kind of happens in
Yeah.
every industry, right? Like the more, you guys are riffing off each other and building up ideas and talking and brainstorming and activating, like again, it's probably not unique to social by any means, but it's like I've been a part of those sort of special teams, and I mean I'm currently part of one where it's just like,
Yeah.
you're reading what other people are thinking on your team, and you're already, 2 steps ahead of everything else that's already going on. And it's just like, it's so, you see the press conferences when, Patty Mahomes or whoever it is like,
Yeah.
this team is special, and, and here are the reasons why. It's very similar, with what we do.
Dude, I mean, I think back to like 2017 through like 2019, really back there. And yeah, I mean, I was going to work every day with my best friends. It didn't feel like work. I mean, Dan Quinn, our head coach at the time, gave our digital team a ping pong table in the break room. And like we would play way too much ping pong together at work. I mean, it literally felt like summer camp. It was so much fun. And like my boss there, Dan Gadd, I mean, I just talked to him on my drive home from work today. Like he's still like a mentor and a good friend to me. He's now at the VP at the Atlanta Dream. But like, yeah, man, I honestly feel like in 2016 going through the Super Bowl together, the what we went through with the 28-3 and the loss to the Patriots, that made all of us like we were all good friends. That was my first year with that team. But we were all like good friends before that. But then like going through something that traumatic, and it kind of sounds silly, but like going through that together on like the internal side and then having to create content out of it, and how do we respond to our fans who are like literally heartbroken and being made fun of, nationwide. And like going through that together, I feel like made our personal relationships that much tighter and only grew from there. Yeah, it is. I think team culture in business is very similar to a sports team. I'm a sports guy. You're a sports guy. Like, when you watch teams that have good chemistry, it's very apparent to the eye. And that's exactly how I view, like team culture in the workplace, especially on like social and digital teams.
Yeah, I mean, and like those really, really great teams where it's like they're not the most talented necessarily, and they're
No,
not the like, they're not the highest paid. Like it's never those teams that end up going on these runs. It's the ones that have that X factor and that just bond that, you've gone through so many things
yeah,
together that it's like you almost have to succeed to keep going.
yeah. Do you know what a team it just comes to mind? You were out in Arizona, so you're going to be like, oh yeah. like the Steve Nash, Sean Marion, Amari Stoudemire, like Boris Diaw, that team, they never won a championship, but like I would do anything to watch that Mike D'Antoni Phoenix Suns team. Like that team, that chemistry, they were just like Steve Nash knew where every player was on the court at all times, and he could just throw it there with his eyes closed and the ball was going there. And I use that example because it's like team culture. Like, yeah, you can finish each other's sentences, and when you're in brainstorms, if you disagree with someone, it's very respectful, and everybody knows that you're trying to build on each other's ideas. If you say, hey, this graphic needs some work, it's not like you're shooting down the graphic. It's like, hey, I like your graphic. Let's make it even better. And there's a sense of like acknowledging that and respect. So yeah, I think it's so parallel to like team success on the field too.
One, and that's a piece of advice I always give to everybody who's like, when I'm first starting out with a team, like, what should I do? And it's like, get to know the people that you work with. Like, no matter what it is, it like, yes, you understand what their skills are and what they do professionally, but like, just talk, get to know each other. Like, it works, and it's something I wish I did more of when I was younger. But it's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
when you know people personally, you always end up giving them that benefit of the doubt. Like if you have a angry or a charged conversation, or you're disagreeing on something, it's like you can come to it, from both sides with respect
Yeah.
and understand. Like, all right, well, like he or she was probably having a rough day. Like, it's no big deal. We'll follow up later. Everything will be fine. Instead of it being like, I don't know anything about this person. I do not appreciate the way that I was just talked to. And I don't know that I'm going to deal with this person anymore. And it's like, it's something
Yeah.
so simple that, like, I think just gets overlooked.
And on the flip side, when you hire people, right? Like I think I'd rather hire someone who's a B skill set, who I know who's going to be a good team fit and team culture fit, than who's an A plus skill set, but I know who won't fit. I've made mistakes before in hiring, maybe the not the best team fit. And I look back at those like mistakes that I made, and I'm like, okay, what could I have done? What questions could I have asked? Maybe I should have asked a couple more references of like truly, because it's hard to fully gain and understand who someone is just in a couple of interviews. And that's where like I like to reach out to references, like truly, who is this person when they're coming to work 5 days a week for you? What is the type of person? What is the type of attitude? What is the type of work ethic that I'm going to get day in and day out? So yeah, I think it kind of works both ways, right? Like from a coaching perspective or, boss perspective first. And then also when you're one of the players, if you will, are right in the middle of that team culture.
Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, because I mean, it's very much like, give me the person any day of the week who doesn't necessarily know everything, but is
Mm-hmm.
so hungry to learn and eager and excited to be there,
10
that
out of
like
10. Yeah.
you'll never, like, that person will never fail, because they're too hungry, they're too driven, they're too, motivated to fail.
Yeah.
And it's like, those are the people who it's like you love going to battle with, because it's like that. I mean, that's me. Like, I don't know all the answers. Like, I've been doing this for 10 years, and like I don't know that I will ever know all the answers, because that's the industry we're in. So it's like, people who want to learn, who want to, continue to grind through this, are, those are the people that you want next to you.
No doubt, man. No doubt. And I always say, like, even from a skill set perspective, like if someone is a great motion designer, but that's all they know how to do, for someone who's an average motion designer and an average designer, an average videographer, an average photographer, and so on and so on, but they've got like the I want to learn factor, I want that person. It's just that's how I always view it. It's like I want someone who's going to be multi-dimensional and have the right attitude, that wants to learn and wants to be great at what they do, not just good across the board.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, like, that's early on in my career. Like, I came up as a creator. Like, I didn't
Yeah.
understand the business side, like the strategy, the analytics. Like, that wasn't my world. My world was, I'm going to make graphics, I'm going to produce and shoot and edit videos, I'm going to go take photos. Like, that's what, like, got me to the different roles that I had. But then it was like, again, like, I want to learn. I want to know more of this stuff. I want to dig into analytics. I want to learn the strategy side. I want to learn all of these, the partnerships, the business side. And it's like, you have to start somewhere, and there has to be a skill set, but there's never going to be a time where you're like, oh no, I know everything. Like, I got everything covered from every angle.
Literally
It's
never.
like,
Not in this industry, that's for sure.
no. So it's just, yeah, like we said, it's all about learning, and it's all about that passion and that drive to just be a little bit better tomorrow than you were today.
No doubt. I'm right there with you, man. 100%.
Well, so you brought it up, so I will ask the question. So making the transition, like I've talked
Yeah.
about this a couple different times of like making the transition for me from like football, something I knew like the back of my hand for 7 years, coming to a different sport. It's like that was very much, a shock to the system of like, I need to learn all of the little stuff that I
Yeah.
took for granted all over again. So with that being said, transitioning from, sports where it was, college sports, then football, then basketball, like to something completely different, like you said,
Yeah.
completely new challenge. Like take me through that. Take me through that thought process, like making that jump and how
Yeah.
it's been.
It's been great. First of all, for me, I was at the Magic when we found out we were pregnant with their first child. And I remember like sitting in the press box on a random like Wednesday night Magic versus Hornets. And I remember like thinking, like, okay, like this time next year, like my wife's gonna be at home by herself doing all of this, and I'm gonna be sitting here. And that just like didn't sit super well with me. So, I started kind of trying to figure out what I want to do and ended up with holiday and club vacations. And it's been awesome. It's a unique challenge for me. And it's been a total 15 months of like learning, like we were just talking about, learning, from many angles. For me, sports has always been my like passion. So I actually really enjoy now, like kind of being a sports fan again. So that's been nice. But like we plan content out like 6 weeks ahead of time. I mean, in sports, like if you plan content out 6 days ahead of time, that's like impressive because so much of what happens on the court or on the field dictates kind of your fan sentiment, if you will, in the type of content you're going to post. So that was like a unique challenge. It's a slower pace, definitely than sports. When sport, like, there's no doubt I'd be lying if I said I didn't miss the adrenaline rush of like getting to a stadium and having no idea what you're posting that day because it's going to be dependent. Like that is so fun and flexes a creative muscle. Like you miss that, but I think there's so many, um, other ways to break through. When I first jumped to holiday and club vacations, like I started doing research on the travel and hospitality industry, social, so I better understood like the level of expectation and the standard across the industry. And from a sports perspective, when entertainment is key on social, like I always say, entertain over inform. You gotta entertain your audience. You have to. It's a battle for attention, and you've got to get them hooked and stop scrolling and actually be like, "Well, this is really good content. Who's this from? Oh, wow, it's from Holiday and Club Vacations. Like, real cool." You know, when I looked at the travel industry, I was like, I don't think anybody does it very well. That was then. I'm not like hating on anybody, but coming from the sports background, it wasn't an entertainment first mindset. It wasn't. It still is not at all. And so for me, I was like, I want to bring that entertainment first mindset of social into this industry, which is can be very archaic a lot of times, timeshare, resort, lifestyle, hospitality. And I want to kind of set a new standard in this industry. And we had great numbers in 2023. We had great numbers. We made great progress, but I think there's still a long way to go. But it was a great first year. It was very different than definitely our consumers have ever seen, and I would argue that the majority of consumers in this industry.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
it's you bring up a key point in all of this is having a little one, like having something more than just your job. Because like for the longest time, like and I've talked about this before, but it's like when I worked for the Steelers, like I was engaged at the time, but my fiance was in Canada, so it was like it was still just it was me. So it was I worked like I was the Steelers social guy and like that's all that really I thought about aside from, going up to see my fiance. But then it was like, getting married and it's another step where it's like you can't be on the road all the time. You can't be like you want to be home with your family. And then, my wife and I had our little one 2 Januaries ago. And it's
Mhm.
like that's again, like you said, that's when
Yeah.
everything changed, where it was like I loved being in Arizona. I loved everything about that place and the people I worked with and the leadership. Everything was so great. But it was like it's not about me anymore. Like it's like I I can't have our little one grow up, you know, 36 hours away from her grandparents and the rest of her family. And like we had to make a choice, we had to make a change. And it's like it's been the best thing that I've ever done in my life.
Dude, I talk to classes at UF a couple of times a semester, and what I always say is, dreams change and that's okay. Priorities change and that's okay. You know, I remember after we lost the Super Bowl at the time, I just started dating my now wife. And, I had said then to myself, I'm like, I'm not leaving Atlanta until we win a Super Bowl, period. Like I'm staying here because that hurt so bad that like I want to see this franchise win a Super Bowl. And then like, COVID happens. I think that changes a lot of people's perspective. But like your dream and goal at that time for me was like, oh man, I'm flying on charter planes, staying in 5-star hotels, getting free food, all this gear. I'm at all these NFL games. It was pretty freaking awesome, right? Working for this global brand, like this is the dream. But then, yeah, to your point, right? I get married. Okay, we want to start a family. We do start a family, and it's like actually the dream is like tucking my daughter in at night and being home for dinner. That's the dream. Like to me, like
You're
the
mad.
5-star hotels and the free food and the like that's cool and it's fun. Like I love going to football games, but like that's not my dream anymore.
No,
Like dreams change and that's okay. And I don't, I say a lot of times they evolve, as you evolve as an adult and as a person in life, so do your dreams and so do your priorities. And like that's totally normal and that's okay.
yeah, it's so true. Like it's you never know. Like you always assume, like obviously getting married, these big life events, getting married, having kids, like it's going to change your life, like obviously, but you don't really know what that means until
Yeah.
it happens. And it's like, again, like when I'm working for the Steelers and I'm young and it's just me, it's like, well, all I have to worry about is me. Like
Yeah.
I'm good. Like I'll go work 70 hours a week. Like I'll fly on the planes, I'll cover these events. Like it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But then it's like then you have other people to worry about and
Yeah.
it's
Not
not
about you
you.
anymore. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, I mean, I listened to your podcast with Andy, the first one, and she said something. I was like, I say that all the time. And it was like, I always used to say at the Falcons, I'm a doctor that doesn't save lives. I'm on call all the time. And, whether it be a transaction, I mean, I remember being in Cleveland for Falcons Browns game, missing one of my college roommates' weddings down in Florida. I'm just like, I look back at that. I'm like, that was so dumb, man. I should have, like, so dumb. Like, why did I do that? Like, there was just an expectation. Like, there's no way you're missing a game.
Yep.
They only have 16 now, 17 of them a season. Like, there's no way you're missing a game. I look back, I'm like, man, like I missed out on some uh, big moments, big opportunities because of that. I mean, I don't get me wrong. I miss football. I definitely do. But there's certain things at this stage of my life. I'm like, I don't miss stuff like that.
No, it's true. Well, and another like the flip side of it too is like fighting that like that FOMO. Like basically like you're always attached to your phone, like early on specifically, and like still a little bit to this day for me, but it's like you have all your alerts on. You can't like you feel like you can't miss, this trend or, this moment in culture happening or a roster move or rumors or and so it's like that's like another not an enemy but like when you're trying to put your priorities in order it's like you're also constantly fighting and like for me like I did all the posting for so many years and then getting
Same.
to a place where it's like now you're not you have to kind of like figure out how to not only like literally get the accounts out of your hands and let someone else do it but like metaphorically like letting some of that stuff go and knowing like I have people who are on this stuff all the time and love this and are younger and different stages of their lives and like
Yeah.
they're the ones focusing on this stuff like it's okay if I don't see Jeff Passan talk about some signing that might happen
Yeah.
4 weeks from now like it's just but that's like that was the internal struggle at first where it was like with the Steelers I was all in like every post was me when I was with the
Yeah.
Cardinals, it was like most everything was me, and then it was a little bit more of my coordinator specialist that I hired, and then it was a little bit more of him and more of him. So it was like I was all in with the Steelers. I was kind of like one foot in, one foot out with the Cardinals. And now it's like I am maybe posting, I'm covering games here and there too, but like it's I'm so far removed from like the day-to-day posting that like it's such an interesting transition as you kind of go through it.
Dude, it is. And you kind of said a minute ago, like I was constantly fighting, and it's like what you were doing is fighting addiction. I mean, that's like, that's what it was. Like, it's people who like haven't been into it, like they're like, oh, that's not a fair comparison. But like, no, you're addicted. You're addicted to your phone. Like to me, there's no like shortcut around it. Like it's a problem. Like, especially in our industry, but I mean, obviously just young people as a whole, but when you're expected to be on literally all the time, like it's straight up addiction. I mean, every notification that was going off on different platforms, like you can't get away. You can't disappear. Like I remember going to Jamaica with my family, I think in like 2017 or somewhere around that. And I was like so happy that I was on a cruise ship because I was like, I literally have to have this phone off. Like I need this so bad.
Yeah.
Because that's literally what it is. It's an addiction. And yeah, like letting go is hard. I mean, I don't have notifications on social platforms like anymore, but like I do have when I log in, I don't have like notifications pop up, but like on Twitter, or X, I go on all the time now, still, of course, because I'm addicted. And I still have Schefter, so I don't have notifications pop up, but every time I log in, I've got a little one. I go see what's going on in the NFL. I mean, that's like a part of it. I think I've curbed it. It's definitely a lot better than it was a few years ago. But dude, it's like I think people take it lightly, but like it's a problem, man. Like how the expectation is that you can't miss anything. Like to me, as a leader, as a boss, like that is not my expectation. My expectation is that you need to recharge, you need to get away, you need to remove yourself from it because then you're going to be recharged, refreshed, and I'm going to get your best. Because if I expect you to always be on, to me, I'm not going to get your best in the long run.
Well, and that's a huge thing with like now us being in these leadership positions and going through that side of things before. Like I couldn't agree
Yeah.
more. Like I am so on top of my team to make sure that they understand like don't get burnt out. Like there are
Mhm.
going to be
It's
days that are going
real.
to be hard. Like there are going to be weeks that are going to be hard, but when you can like take time, like make sure that you are prioritizing your mental health, prioritize your schedule. Like I always said, like with the Steelers and sometimes with the Cardinals, it was like I needed just a day to like be a human and like do laundry and go to the grocery store. And it's like because you never have you didn't really have time to do that stuff and unless you specifically were like I have to make the effort and I
Yeah.
have to do this.
And part of it, like, I wonder, everybody's case is different, but like, is that just because we all want to be the best at what we do that we put those expectations on ourselves, or is that the leadership expectation? Because to your point, I hope that when like you and myself and others from our generation, if you will, are the next VPs, SVPs, CMOs, CEOs, whatever, we have that understanding. And it's definitely, I hope that next generation, definitely, if they're doing it, that's on them because I hope us as leaders who have been through that, like we've set the expectation that is not how it should be. And I don't think just because I went through it, everybody should go through it. It's like, no, because I went through it, I want to learn and make sure that others can be more effective, more efficient than I ever was.
Yeah.
So, I hope as like we move into that next generation of leaders, that's definitely not the expectation for those kind of beginner social media roles.
Yeah. No, and that's it too, is just like you like you said, you've been through it, you know that you cannot be at your best. Like even if the reason you're working so hard is like you want to be the best at everything and
Mhm.
you want to keep growing and of course like that's great and you need that mindset for sure. But on the flip side, like you have to prioritize your own health. Like my dad always told me there's only one person who can look out for you 100% of the time, and it's you. So
Mhm.
if you are not setting these boundaries and you are not, prioritizing the things that matter to you and the things that like that make you, who you are and make you the best at what you do, it's like everyone has their own creative process. Everyone has their own way
Yeah.
of doing things. Like there's no, especially in our industry, like there's no book that says, here's exactly how you should be a social director, a social manager, a social
Yeah.
coordinator. It's like you can, like, whatever leads to success, like whatever hours that means, whatever schedule that means, whatever location that you need to work, like whatever all of that means, like
Yeah.
the success doesn't change. Like it's still, we're still shooting for the same thing. It's just we don't have to always take the same path.
I'm all about flexibility, man. Like maybe I'm too trusting, but I trust everybody who works for me until they prove that they shouldn't have my trust. And to your point, maybe this isn't the best analogy, but it's kind of like a phone in the sense of like, hey, we're charged up, full, ready to go. Eventually, if we keep going too hard, we're hitting that low battery mode. When you hit that low battery mode, you better plug in or you're dead. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it's the same thing. Like if you don't plug in and get time away, like you're not going to be creative. You're going to get burnt out. Like you don't let yourself hit the low battery mode. Like charge up before you get there. I think it's kind of a silly analogy with literally being a phone, but like to me, it's the perfect analogy. Like you can't let yourself get that low.
And it makes sense. Like, and I mean, like, if you get to 40%, like, don't just charge yourself back up to
Yeah,
50%. You know what I mean? Like, you really need to, you have to set these boundaries and you have to figure it out. Like, how do you get from whatever percent you're at to 100%? Like, because that's what
yeah.
matters.
And that's leadership's job and should be. And maybe not everybody's understanding that. Some people may be listening saying, like, I want to, but I don't have leaders that allow me to do that. And look, I get that. And like when I talk to people, one of the questions that I ask people who work for me is like, hey, how are you at your best? Like, is it, what do you need to do to be at your best? I set goals with people. Everybody who's worked for me, they set 3 personal and 3 professional goals at the start of the year. Professional goal may be learn Photoshop. Personal goal may be do 3 Peloton classes a week. When I have one-on-ones, people on my team, I always have their goals up all year long. And I say, hey, how many Peloton classes have you done this week? Hey, you want to learn a new language? What words have we learned? I help hold them accountable because when you have like goals written down and when you hold yourself accountable and have the expectation that someone else is also holding you accountable, then you try to do that. So for me, that's always been a priority is like make sure that their job is part of their life. Their job is not their life. That's how I believe people work best.
Well, and you bring up a good point. Something that I did with my team, because like, so with the Pirates, we have this like leadership academy that I've never had leadership training, and I don't know that a lot of people have. Like, I don't know that that's something that gets offered very much. So thank the Lord, like I said, the move to the Pirates has been the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. But like being able to just learn from other leaders and go through it, like, like we talked about, going through it together and understanding like different philosophies for leadership and why you want to be a leader, and like just little things that really put things into perspective that like you really never think about. Like when I was wanting to be like want to be a social media director, well, like for what, like what does that mean? Well, it's like, well, you get paid more and you're more important. It's like, okay, well, great, but like that that's not being a leader. That's just like you want the shiny title and the paycheck. Like, so then learning what it means to be a leader, and you're literally guiding people in their careers, and how can you, again, like very parental, but like how do you look out for them just as much if not more than you're looking out for you? And so like you mentioned, keeping people accountable and bringing up these goals where we started doing that earlier, when my new team got here that I hired, and it was like just something that we talked about in one-on-ones of like, let's make sure that you hit your 6 month goals, whatever they may be. Like these are
Mhm.
for you, these aren't for me, these aren't to turn into anyone. Like this isn't for me, this is for you. And you can use me as kind of that accountability coach, basically, of like, if you need someone to help you with this, like that's what I'm here for. And it's like, it seems
Mhm.
like it's something so insignificant, but just the fact of like writing down like these are the goals that I want to achieve. It's like putting it in paper or putting it on paper or digitally or wherever you write it down. It's like that makes it so much more real than just thinking about it and hoping to achieve it.
Yeah. For me too, like again, going back to sports, like I view leadership as like being a coach. I love coaching. I've coached third grade basketball. I've coached high school basketball. I love coaching. I love developing people, making people better at what they do. Like you always hate it, and it's always like initially, especially, right? Like total gut punch when you lose a star on your team. But it's like the biggest compliment. I think about people that I have worked with or have worked for me and like where they are now and running all these different worldwide, like global brands, social media accounts. I'm like, dang, like I had a small piece of that. Like you think about great coaches in sports, right? You think about like the Nick Sabans and, that have just had a tremendous amount of success and that have gotten other people now to be great coaches and the players that they have in the NFL and all this stuff. It's like, wow, like they can what do they all have in common? Like they can really develop people and get people to the next step and to succeed. And they're so good at leading different people different ways. I think that's the other thing, like with leadership and with coaching, you don't just have one way. Like a great coach and a great leader can adapt to the personnel that you have. And you may take feedback way different than I do. Like some people like critical feedback or positive reinforcement, etc. And being able to learn your people and adjust your leadership styles to them, like that's what makes a leader special and really allows a leader to develop people. So I love seeing people that I used to work with like crushing it now. It's like, man, I hope one day we get to work together again. But in the meantime, like keep crushing it. It makes me so proud.
Well, like you said, like it's not here's my leadership style and here's how Zach leads. So everyone adjust and figure it out because I'm not
Yeah,
changing. This is my
not gonna
way.
go
And it's
well.
like that it doesn't work. Like no matter what anyone thinks, it's like it's your job as the leader to adjust to the people who work for you. Like you said, like everyone takes criticism differently, everyone takes praise differently, everyone wants different things and has different goals and different ways of communicating. And some people may like feedback all the time. Some people may be like, just trust me, I got this. I'll let you know when I need you. And it's like you have to be able to not only get all your work done and figure it out, but like be able to adjust and make sure that you're empowering them and giving them all that they need.
Totally, totally. No, and think about the stair step model. Uh, if you're on a stair, you want to be able to level up to help your boss. He wants to level up to help his or her boss. Well, by doing that, if I'm going up to the next step, I need my team to come to my step and empowering them, enabling them, giving them the tools they need to maybe do things that aren't in their job description, but help them reach their next step of their career. And like for me, I'm always going to trust my people until you prove that I shouldn't. Like that's how I operate. Maybe some people are like, no way. And that's fine. But like my style is like I'm gonna trust people until they prove that I shouldn't trust them anymore.
No, you're not alone, trust me, because like I'm the exact same way. It's like if you're gonna go into every day thinking the worst or worrying about what people are gonna do or if they're not gonna like you're never gonna make it through a day and you're definitely not gonna, stay at your best. So but yeah, I mean it's always been like everything I've always told anyone who's worked for me is like 50% of this job is what you can do for, the team that we work for, the Pirates, the Cardinals, the Steelers, whatever it might be. But the other half is like, what can I as a leader and what can the organization do for you? And like, there are very few people who are lucky enough to stay at the same place for their entire career, retire, call it a day.
Especially in today's world. Yeah.
Especially in today's world. So it's like you want to make sure, like you said, it's a compliment when someone that you've trained and worked with for so long moves on to something bigger and better. Like, yes, of course, it hurts and you'll have to replace them and it's very, very difficult. But like the joy that you feel for them taking that next step and moving up and moving on, like that trumps so much any of the pain of like hiring and figuring things out
Yeah.
on your end.
I care about people way more than I care about employees. That's what I say. Like, I try to develop relationships with people, not develop relationships with employees. And I think that's a big difference. So yeah,
Definitely.
they're people. They're not an employee number or anything like that.
Well, so going into kind of the advice side of things. So like
Yeah.
if you're talking to, a high school senior junior at University of Florida, like looking to get into this industry and get to, where we are and moving through, like what would be that piece of advice that like you wish almost that you had when you were kind of taking those first steps?
I say two things a lot when I am asked this question. Number one, I say find the line between being aggressive and being annoying. Be aggressive, don't be annoying. Make contacts, reach out, there's a difference between reaching out and making a contact and keeping a contact. Keeping a contact is not only pinging them when you need something. It's, hey, I saw this thing that the Pirates did, man. Like, this was awesome. Would love to hop on the phone and chat and learn more to understand like how this campaign came to life. Like, just keeping me at the top of your mind, like being aggressive, don't be annoying. The other thing I say a lot is, and I've mentioned this and I've had a few people do it, kudos to them. When you apply for social jobs, in my mind, that's your first samples. That's your first work sample. If your resume, again, some people would vastly disagree with me, so this is just my opinion. If your resume is a black and white resume for a social job, I mean, like in the NFL, when I was hiring, you know how it is. I'd get 700 resumes, and I would probably give an average of 4 to 6 seconds per resume on the first round when I'm flipping through. So, like I always say, man, what if it's just a piece of paper with your name and a QR code? That's instantly you're going to earn more than 4 seconds. I will take out my phone with your name in mind. So you've already earned maybe 8 seconds. I scan the QR code. It takes me to Instagram, and it's Kyle Benzion _ resume. And it's got like 9 squares in it. One square is, hey, here's some of my graphic work. Here's my on camera. Here's social posts I did. Here's my video skills. And in the Instagram stories is like my highlights. Get to know me. You're already showing me, A, you know how to use social effectively and creatively. But B, like you're giving me a creative work sample without me even asking for one. So for me, like that's a piece of advice I give is like, look at the job you're applying for and think about like, how can I stand out? How can I be different? How can this person be wowed by me before they even reach out to me? Especially in sports jobs, man, like it's all about who you know. And the only way to break in if you don't know somebody is being creative, being outside the box. I used to think, I don't really use Snapchat anymore, but with Snapchat was bigger. What if the QR code, maybe it's not Instagram, maybe if it was a Snapchat filter? It's like, open your Snapchat at the facility and swipe to the filter until you see my name. And then it's like, I just made a Snapchat filter. And it's like, hire me, Kyle Van
Yeah.
Zion. Like, whoa, that's creative. You know what I mean? Just what can you do that's different? That's how I view it. And a few people I know at Florida, when I talked to, they did it and they sent me their like Instagram resume, things like that. And it turned out great. They got cool opportunities. So that's just would be my advice, especially if you're in a rut. Cause I know that first job, good luck, man. I applied to so many. The only job offer I got initially was at the University of Nebraska. Kelly Mosier took a chance on me. I never lived outside of the state of Florida. I had never driven in snow in my life. I was scared to death. I was like, this is going to be the worst. But you know what? I got in. I got an opportunity, and that getting that first opportunity is hard to do. So.
It's true. Well, and you bring up such a great point, and it's something I've talked about before, but it's like you're just like you said, it's your first sample. Like your job, you're applying for a job that you are going to be tasked with creating content and a voice and an experience that gets people to stop and consume. So if you
Right.
can't get the hiring manager to stop and consume your own stuff, how does that kind of reflect, what you're trying
I
to
mean, it's
accomplish?
hard. It takes more time, but like if you're gonna just take the easy way out, and here's my resume that I also sent to 65 other companies, like you're not showing me how you can put time and effort into creativity. So
It's
I don't
true.
know, just an idea. Maybe someone will use it. If they do, send it to me. I'd love to see it.
Yeah, that I love that stuff. Like my resume it looks like, well, now I had to change it and update it once Twitter changed to X, but it looks like my Twitter account or X account where it's
That's
like,
cool.
and so again, like even if I'm not qualified for whatever I'm applying for, like you're gonna stop and at least be like, oh, all
This is
right,
different.
like
You
this guy.
instantly earn more than 4 seconds of my time. I mean,
Exactly.
that's step one, right? That's the very first step. How can I earn more than 4 seconds of the hiring manager's time? You just did it. It's creative.
And exactly like you're saying, like when we're going through these, job postings, like hundreds, if not thousands of applicants come in. So like the other piece of advice that I always give is like use the use the job description as your own cheat sheet. Like
Mhm.
the
Oh
hiring
yeah,
manager is literally saying, here is the human being that I want to hire. Like here are all the skills, here's the experience, like here's everything. So use that when you're applying. Like if you're writing your cover letter, use the same words that are
yeah.
in the job
Especially now with
description.
AI, man. Especially because companies use AI to help filter out, you know, people who have the same skill set. So especially with AI.
That's true. But yeah, but that's it. It's like you as an applicant are trying to make the hiring manager's job easier because
Mhm.
it's not easy to hire people. Like
Mhm.
there's no way that it's just like you just throw a dart at the board and you're like, there's our person, let's get
Yeah,
started. Like it's so difficult and there's so many different ways that you can do it that it's like the easier you as an applicant can make it on the hiring manager, the better off you are.
no doubt. I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. That'd be my advice, man. Find the line between being aggressive and annoying, and it's a creative job. That's your first opportunity. Is your resume.
Yeah, I love that. Oh man. Well, so I want to get into just before we kind of wrap up.
Yeah.
Take me through, like, I know we kind of went off on a tangent for advice and different things, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And the leadership side of things is always so fascinating because it's just there's so much to learn. But
So much.
going back to kind of the strategy and that side of things, like take me through, a project, whether that's with the
Mm.
Falcons, with the Magic, with, wherever it is, where, Holiday Inn, like wherever you want to kind of take this, but like just a project that you were either really proud of or just something that did really well and how it came from, whether it was the need or the idea all the way to like, let's get this out in the world.
So this is the easiest answer for me. And no, it's not Falcons schedule release videos making fun of the Saints because that's the fun answer.
Yeah.
Um, this is easy for me, and I want to preface it by saying that I was a very small part of the broader team we that pulled this thing off. It was the Atlanta Falcons. Year was I don't remember, maybe 19. I'd have to go back and look. Um, One of our players at the time, he was just traded to us, tight end Hayden Hurst, and he actually used to be part of the Pirates organization. Um, he had a Players Tribune piece come out about him that he did with them, a written piece about going through depression, battling that stigma, attempting suicide, all that. And the piece was like so moving, man. It was so moving. And so we, as a digital team and our video team especially, worked with our communications team, and we're like, how can we try to do this right and do this well and have them like open up on camera? And those guys created great relationships with Hayden because built that trust with him to allow him to do it comfortably. And they pulled off I think it's like an 11-minute video or so. It's on YouTube now. It's called Breaking the Stigma with Hayden Hurst. And we did that piece in that first video. And he has the Hayden Hurst Foundation for mental health awareness. And we interviewed his parents and coaches and him and several people. And it was just without a doubt the most impactful piece of content I've ever been a part of because we posted it on different platforms, different ways, optimizing on the different platforms. And so many of the comments, Zach, were like, thank you for sharing this. This piece literally saved my life. If I didn't see this piece, like I probably wouldn't be here tomorrow. And to be a very small part of something that has that big of impact, to me, like nothing is ever going to reach that. There's a lot of negative with social media, a lot, but there's a positive like that you're able to reach people who need to be reached with a story that's that impactful. And then we got a bunch of the comments of people who said things like that, who said, this saved my life. We reached out to them, several people, and had them then, as the second part, record videos to Hayden. And then the second video we did was Hayden coming into a room, and we hit play, and he watched all these people make these videos to him, like, your story just saved my life. And that was the second piece. I mean, dude, it still gives me chills. Like, just the most impactful pieces of content. I mean, it had millions of views, millions. I would be curious to go on YouTube now and see like how many millions it has. But I don't know if I'll ever be a part. I hope I am a part of content that it can be like that, moving to that level again. It just, that one makes me really proud to be a really small piece of that.
Definitely. Well, yeah, I mean, it's like it's like you said, there's a lot of bad and a lot of negativity out there, especially on social, but it's like there's so much good happening. And
Mm.
being, like you said, even just a small part of getting that positivity and that just being able to make an impact in just whatever possible way is like that's such a, such a great part of this job where it's like you can do these big amazing things so well, but it's also the little things that matter and can help out fans and completely different scale of impact. But like I remember at the Steelers, like we had a fan who reached out and said like someone broke into his house and stole his entire Steeler jersey collection, and like he was heartbroken and just like he's like I took my whole, he was probably like 25 years old or something, like a younger
Mm.
kid. And he's like, I spent so many paychecks on this stuff, and like I love the Steelers. And so it was like it was just out there in the universe. Like it wasn't anything where he DM'd us or anything like that. But it was just like as soon as we saw it, it was like one DM from the Steelers. And it's like, like what size are you? Tell us what jerseys you need. We got you. And it's like, again, something so insignificant in effort, like not insignificant in impact, but like effort. Like really it was one message. It was getting his address. It was grabbing jerseys from the team shop, writing him a note and sending it off. And like, even if he was already a fan for life, like you can guarantee like that kid is still watching Steeler games to this day just because of something so easy to do that I think it's overlooked quite a bit.
That's the impact of sports, man. Like, two other quick examples. Like, I remember giving a football to a signed Julio Jones jersey to a kid on the field in Tampa, and him breaking down in tears. I remember giving a signed ball. I don't remember who it was signed by, to a Falcons fan at Lambeau Field in Green Bay. And this Falcons fan gave me his lucky Falcons pom pom that he carried with him for the last 20 years to watch anywhere he went to watch Falcons games. I since gave that pom pom to people who still work for the Falcons, so it stays in the building.
Nice.
But like, dude, the impact that you can have in sports like that, like just doing the very little things, can make literally a kid's life. Like, I guarantee that kid who I gave the Julio Jones jersey to, he has that jersey probably in his room,
Yeah.
still talks about that day, and it was something very small that was able to make such impact. And like the coolest thing about that in sports, right? It's like I was that kid. I was that kid. I would do anything for an autograph or a photo or anything like that back when I was a little kid. So it was really cool, especially at the Falcons, to be able to make that impact consistently.
It's true, man. It's true. Well, cool. Like I honestly I can't thank you enough for
Yeah,
jumping on
dude.
and talking to me. But I
Oh
got a
yeah,
couple quick hitter things that we can go through and we'll call it a day.
fire away. Let's go.
All right. Well, I'll get to the one you already know is coming, but
Yeah.
the first one is what would be your least favorite industry buzzword?
Juice is worth the squeeze. And I'm going to shout out Chris Jones on that. He worked with us at the Falcons. He's now in digital at Publix down here. He's one of my best friends in Orlando. He's the one that drove that one into the ground for me. Is the juice worth the squeeze? Yes, Chris Jonesy.
Yes.
It is worth the squeeze.
That's awesome. I like that one. If you had to pick one brand or team on social that just has everything figured out, who would
Mm.
it be?
All right, I
Uh,
can't say the Chargers. I'm not saying the Chargers. Everybody says the Chargers. But Megan, you do a great job out there. So kudos to
Shout
you.
out for sure.
Um, One brand. It doesn't have to be a team.
No, it
It can
can
be
be
outside
just
sports.
anyone on social who you were just like,
I love Chipotle. I get a lot. I love the restaurant Chipotle, but I get a lot of uh, inspiration from Chipotle. I think they do a good job, especially on the culturally relevant side of things. They do a really nice job.
I love that. Okay, so the big question: Parks and Rec or The Office?
Dude, I love Parks and Rec, but The Office is the greatest show in television history, period. Now, and we talked about this before. Ted Lasso is version 2 of the second best show of the best show in television history. So if you work in social and haven't seen The Office, like you don't work in social because you have to know the memes and understand them. But I would say Ted Lasso is right there with it because it's
Yeah.
so like culturally relevant. Like you kind of have to be able to be able to work for a brand that wants to be culturally relevant. You like have to know Ted Lasso.
Well, and
But
yeah, and not to take too big of a tangent on this because I could talk about this all day, but like, but yeah, it's so there are things like shows, movies, like music that just transcend their medium and it's culture. Like they're like, granted, I'm no Taylor Swift fan, but it's like you
you're
need to
missing out.
understand who she is and what she does and why she's important and like keeping an eye on what she's doing. Like obviously it's really easy with the NFL and how they cover her, but like you have to like there are things that you just have to know and have to experience and have to be a part of where it's like, like you said, Ted Lasso. It's like if you work in sports social or just social in general, it's like it's everywhere. Like it's such a not even a subset of social. It's just it's part of the culture that is social media. And so it's like there are certain things where just like you said, like you have to kind of again keep your finger on the pulse, but it's like it's just certain things where it's you have to kind of experience them to know how they impact what you're doing.
Dude, I think Taylor Swift, you hit it. Like, whether you're a Swiftie or not, like, in my mind, she's the most influential person in the world right now. And she's in the limelight all the time, especially now with being connected to one of the biggest brands, at least domestically, in the NFL. So between the NFL and Taylor Swift, that like organic collaboration that has happened, like, you don't have tabs on Taylor Swift, like, what are you doing? Got it. By the way, her music's awesome. So
I
she's,
see. I
she's
like. I haven't listened to much of her more recent stuff. I like back when she first broke out. Like I listened to all that, but I've been much more. I mean, of a podcast guy recently than music. But like, uh, but yeah, when I dig into music, it's more Mac Miller and Bad
mm,
Bunny and Chance the Rapper and those guys.
yeah, that's not the Taylor Swift genre.
Not quite, but like at least I know what's happening. And like, granted,
Yeah,
I've two members of my team that love Taylor Swift, and they keep me up to
I'm
date
sure
as
you.
well.
Yeah, that's the thing. Anybody's team has a couple members of people who are in the know with Taylor Swift.
It's true. Um, okay, so brand new question then. What's your favorite Taylor Swift song?
Hmm, bro, this is tough. Um, Dude, the OG is Teardrops on My Guitar. That's kind of old country genre. Like that's one, you know what that takes me back to? First time I ever heard of her, I was a freshman in high school. I was at the beach with my cousins, and my cousin was like, "There's this new artist. I'm gonna burn you a CD of her stuff." And she like my cousin wrote on the CD, like Taylor Swift, Teardrops on My Guitar. That's what it brought me back to. Yeah.
Was that doesn't she have a song called like Our Song or something like that?
Yeah.
Or there's
Our
one that
song.
I remember from I remember from way back when, like there is one that I really like. I can't remember what it's called, but I also like Anti-Hero is my more recent
Yeah.
song that I like.
The way she's been able to evolve over the last like 15 years and stay so relevant. Like, dude, there's gonna be so many movies about her, and it's incredible. Like, it's remarkable in today's digital landscape to always stay in like the positive limelight. Like, kudos to her.
It's crazy, man. All right,
Yeah,
Friends or Seinfeld?
Friends. Yeah, easy.
Cool Ranch or Nacho Cheese?
Cool Ranch for sure. Always Ranch.
TikTok, Reels, or Shorts?
Reels.
Google Plus or IGTV?
Hmm. Not IGTV. I remember when the Falcons were one of the first like brands to roll. They like launched it to us early so we could have content. I can't tell you last time I watched something on IGTV. So there's that answer.
Vine or MySpace?
Fine, fine. It's
Yeah,
classic.
that's a good one. All right. And then the very last one is rate, and this one I would assume hits close to home with all the schedule release videos, but
Mm.
rate the finale of Game of Thrones from one
Bro,
to 10.
I've never seen Game of Thrones.
Oh,
So fun fact, I'm gonna Nico Tan. I love Nico, like one of my favorite people I've ever worked with in my life. He he Nico better. I'm gonna make sure he listens to this.
hey,
He
I'm trying to get him on here. So,
tell me if you
uh,
need help. I'll hit him
yeah,
up. So
hit him
Nico
up.
leads the social now for the Bulls, and he watched Game of Thrones, I believe, but he found this illustrator, this animator in Argentina on YouTube, and like randomly reached out to him, like found his email, and like this guy, he couldn't speak English, so we had to communicate via email because we tried to talk to him on the phone and we couldn't communicate with him. And so we were telling him all these things to put in that Game of Thrones schedule release video. And he was probably like, what do these people want? Like, what are they like? A ram running into a referee? Like, what? And yeah, I mean, it went so viral. That guy was awesome. But yeah, I've never seen it. I'm not really into like the fantasy stuff, man.
No, that was if I were to if I was going to guess of all of the guests that I would have on of who would have seen Game of Thrones,
Really?
I would have put all my money that like because
Wow.
like with the Falcons, I swear you
I
guys
know.
did so much, so it must have been. I
That
mean,
was never me, man. Nico would
shout
come
out
to me and be
Nico.
like, Nico would be like, yo, I got this Game of Thrones. I'm like, all right. I don't know what it means or why we're doing it, but if you say so.
Oh,
That's
that's awesome. Well,
yeah.
cool, man. Well, I honestly I really appreciate it. It was great to catch up, and we'll have to do this again soon.
Yeah, I loved it, man. This is fun, and keep doing big things with this. I think this is so awesome for young professionals. If you aren't listening to this, you're missing out. There's a lot of good advice and potentially some people that you want to work for one day, and to hear their insight on things like this is awesome that you're doing this.
I appreciate it, man. Well, cool. Well,
Yeah.
thank you everyone for listening, or watching, or everything in between. But this has been another episode of a very good social media podcast. We try to live up to that name every single day, and we'll see you next time.